Every good game needs a good gameplay. Or does it? Gather, craft, build, collect, explore, fight, progress. In this video we're going to design the gameplay loop for our game. It's going to be insane, watch till the end of the video, or this video will endlessly loop on your forehead. If you do not finish watching the video, it will endlessly loop on your forehead. Second, have to subscribe for any damages, convenience, or confusion caused by the endless looping of the video on your forehead. Looping is not limited to social alerts, distraction, breaking from activities, or any consequences arising from this feature. I'm simonhytte, and welcome to the Gamedev Spirit. If you haven't seen the last video, make sure you check out that first. At the start, there was nothing. And then, bang! A little particle appears on the screen. Tennis for 2. A ball is thrown towards your side, and you instantly understand what you have to do. Is it A, knock it back? Is it B, lick the screen? Or is it C, scream at the screen? It's A, it's A, okay? And thus, gameplay was born. You might think this is stupid, this is simple, but check this out. And today's video games evolve from the same basis, and we're just modernizing them for the modern audience. Look at something like Hollow Knight, an indie darling, clearly an ancestor of Metroid series. It's fine to take inspiration. Gameplay is heavily tied to genre. Today we have all sorts of genres of games, from strategic platformer to a multiplayer online shooter. And it's important to know your genre and what it has to offer and how. Only then you can innovate and or understand it. Back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, there's been a lot of straight up ass controller breaking eye tweaking sweaty palm mechanics we tend to forget when we're looking at this time fondly. But most of these games get obliterated by modern standards. Jumps you can jump, awkward controls, no save features, visual errors. So how do you even start comprehending all of this legacy and information without your head exploding in the process? I think I should also try to reflect on what I like or don't like about them. I'm familiar with the genre, but that's not enough. As many smart people in the YouTube comments will tell you, playing games is not enough, you have to understand them. As much as the source is basically disgusting. The idea is not wrong. You should understand why things work this way, instead of assuming that you know because you played a few games. Knowing the bounds and cliches of your genre is important too. People have been point and clicking for decades, even without a mouse. Point and click games, or adventure games, have been around since the early days, starting out as text adventures and eventually evolving into graphic adventures. Text adventures such as The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Colossal Cave Adventure, or Zork. These games were crucial for defining the future of adventure games. The first notable breakthrough was the implementation of graphics. Finally, we don't have to imagine ogres and we can just see them. I would maybe prefer the text version here. Notable studios here are LucasArts, Sierra Entertainment, Revolution, Westwood Studios, and AdventureSoft. Sierra Entertainment is standing behind a game series, The King's Quest, released on 1984. Seems like they finished The King's Quest and their reward was big money! King's Quest jump-started the entire genre to further relevance. However, the technology was not quite there yet. Sierra made a couple of other point-and-click games, but soon they heard a knock. Knock knock, who's there? Your timely device. Lucas, the Lucas Star Wars Lucas man. In 1987, Lucas Games dropped Maniac Mansion, and you would be a maniac not to play it at that time. Where Sierra would kill you if you such as breathed in the wrong direction, Maniac Mansion was way more lenient and player-friendly in its design. In 1990, they released The Secret of the Monkey Island, one of the most influential adventure games of all time. Ron Gilbert, with the help of Tim Schafer and Dave Grossman, I probably butchered those names by the way, an adventure game set on a fictional Caribbean island inspired by Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean theme park ride. The game stood out for its humor, which mocked pirate stereotypes, the setting, characters, and even the player sometimes. Unlike other games, Ron Gilbert used his previous design philosophy from Maniac Mansion, where he leaned towards more player-friendly design. And this was just the beginning. The Monkey Island was a financial success and spawned the entire franchise of games. Tim Schafer worked with LucasArts on Day of the Tentacle, another notable release, and after some time decided to make Double Fine, which makes games today. Today the genre survives in the form of indie games, since these games are easier to make than a platformer or a 3D RPG. I'll try to explain my line of thinking with the game I'm making, Embers of SPIRITFLAME. Some of my favorite point-and-click games have immense charm in the dialogue.
We got your tear gas money right here.
Really? All right, here you go. 1 tear gas grenade launcher.
This is a salad shooter filled with onions.
I think writing is twice as important as gameplay here, which should be fairly standard for these games. If you remember at the start of this video, I asked this simple question if every game needs a good gameplay. And the simple answer to that is that some games can have worse gameplay, but it needs to be balanced out. It's a balancing act. You can't have no gameplay and no story or no anything. Something in the game has to work in order for it to be nice. Like, okay, look at Mario games, for example. Mario games aren't exactly known for their story. The story is very simple, there's nothing deep. Like, if you play Mario Odyssey, you don't come from that thinking, oh, the story was amazing, it's insane, I loved it. No, you think, oh, this game is creative with the jumping mechanics and the way it uses the levels, as the story has been same since 1985. A plumber, Mario needs to rescue a princess from an evil Bowser. And that's it. To summarize, try to do research into the genre similar to your game. Try to combine the mechanics you like from other games, by inspiring, not stealing. Try to observe the conventions of the genre and understand them. What do these games have in common? Why does it work? So Ember's gameplay serves as a spin on the case of the Golden Idol and the Return of the Obra Dinn, with a bit of Papers, Please sprinkled in. I love all these games and I like how they make you think about the situation instead of just giving you the solution, unlike some other games. For me, what's important is to immerse the player in the world and give them something to do, to think about, and not just read a book. Because game good, book bad. Of course. Take a look at Ace Attorney series, which masterfully combines the element of quirky dialogue and logic puzzles. In that game, you're given a testimony on a trial, and you have to prove your case by presenting an evidence to contradict their statement. As a smart British man would tell you, the active games have a couple of different parts to their gameplay. We are striving for something emblematic of these games. Actually, the way I think about gameplay loops is those annoying connect the power minigames where you have to connect these different parts. To me, every gameplay decision fits a certain piece and they have to work in tangentum together in order for the game to work. As I mentioned, the pieces are entirely up to you. You can take some of them from different games. If you combine, it's alright. If you steal, well then it's bad. So as long as you understand what you're doing, you're fine just refining or, molding the different types of gameplay in this way. The gameplay loop will split into these 3 sections: finding evidence, inspecting evidence, deductions. Finding evidence. As for any point-and-click game, this is very simple. We'll be highlighting a few spots on the screen for the player to inspect the evidence further. There are two types of interactions in Embers of SPIRITFLAME. One is the Spirit Flame itself. As mentioned in the previous episode, I'm just gonna roll the clip here so past Simon can explain it. There's an item the player uses to watch memories that happened in that place, which will be symbolized by these little flames, the spirit flames. So there are these flames, and then the other type is the evidence. The photos, the documents, anything related to the mystery, represented by these glowy points. Inspecting evidence. Now this is the part where we'll have to be a bit cautious. Inspecting evidence serves to get clues about the question in mind. Since there are two types of items, they're gonna be inspected differently. The first part is dialogue. Dialogue is pretty straightforward, where the focus is on the character and clues in text. Or the subtext, the things that's not said but implied. What complicates things a bit is that the memories are not in order, so the player has to kind of understand these things on their own, and it fitting into the larger picture as well. Deductions. The hardest part to get right. You make a deduction based on the evidence and you fill it in the journal. The journal is the place where you go for the meat of the game. So the journal asks you questions like, what's the name of the resident number 1? And you'll need to answer by writing it in. We were considering doing a choice wheel or other options, but we landed on writing it in, because there's a lot of like small interactions and it doesn't work nearly as well. The problem with these systems is that you need to give the player some leeway to kind of trial and error, so they can use the elimination method, for example, in some way. But you can't give them too much, because then they wouldn't need to think and they would just brute force their way through the game. So for this, to explain what I mean, in this example, if the resident's name is John and you have 3 options on this wheel, they're just gonna try John, they're just gonna try Francis, and they're just gonna try Simon, and one of them is gonna be correct. So you kind of are looking for the combinatory explosion, which is another term that's important here, where the number of possible options goes through the roof and into the skies. See, I told you game developers are basically birds, and the player can no longer brute force their way through this part of the game. That's why we decided for the player to write it in, because then you have all the characters, all the characters on the keyboard. It's very simple for us to make as well. And the other advantage is that we are not gonna show it right away, the answer. So if you write John Goodman, for example, in, we're not gonna like correct it right away. We're gonna wait for a combination of multiple of them to be correct. Then it'll be corrected all at once and show the player, oh, you have all these well. So that's kind of the system from Return of the Obra Dinn, where you have to get right the fate of 3 crewmates. And then the game tells you, okay, these are correct, you don't need to worry about these anymore. This part of the system is something we want to use for this. I'll elaborate this on a bit further, but as a base this explanation, this should work. I also added a narrative inciting incident. The inciting incident is the event that starts the story and kind of introduces you to the world. I've decided to wrap it in the company aesthetic. I was toying with few ideas, but this seems to work well within the universe and I like it. So the game would start with a letter from the company explaining what you need to do, or else they'll take care of you as well. A lot of these choices in brainstorming sessions are entirely up to you. Just be aware of what are the ripple effects of them, what this causes for the larger picture. I'm aware this video was a lot of theory dump, and it's not as silly as usual as the other ones where I jump and spin on my head. Theory is cool, but let's put all of this stuff into practice, shall we? Hello, employee. The company has chosen you for a routine investigation of a property that's being bought. The original owner of the property disappeared a couple of years ago, and we need you to find them to secure their signature. In case they are no longer around, find out any further information regarding the people previously living on the property. These assets will be valuable to the company. If you fail to finish the job, your contract will be terminated, and so will be you. Thank you for your cooperation. The last episode we talked about the name of the item for scanning spirit flames, so here are the results. On the 4th place we have the Spirit Tracker with staggering 6.3%. On the 3rd place we have the Spirit Projector with 10.4%. On the 2nd place, the Silver Medal, we have the Spirit Scanner with 25%. And the winner is the Spirit Scope with 58.3%. There were 48 votes in total. The poll ran for about 2 weeks. And yeah, we're gonna implement Spirit Scope into the game, into the final game. So this episode we will vote about the placeholder music. I composed a little tune, as you can see here and heard before. It's a little piano thing, but I'm not quite so sure about it and if it fits and stuff. So go ahead and visit embersofspiritflame.com and impact the development of the game. You can choose one of these 3 options, and that's about it. I've been simonhytte, and you keep barking at the right trees. Bye! Strategic platformer? Why do I sound like a Banjo-Kazooie guy?